Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Social Confoes. It is episode 69. And Jean-Luc, you have a profile picture on. What's that about for this
Is this a
episode?
PvP they call it, right? That's
A
is that
PFP? Yeah, yeah, a
PFP,
PFP.
right? Yeah, PFP. So yeah, for those that don't know, I got the chicken pox. So we're experimenting a little bit with going full meta today, and people will be very annoyed by this, but I felt it was worth a try. And for 69, we ended up going with a different route than initially anticipated because I didn't go after a guest very hardly after I got the chicken pox because I kind of knew I wouldn't be able to be on screen or representable on screen. And of course, having a guest on it would be fun if I could show my face, which I cannot. So I'm using one of my hive punks instead.
All right. And yes, speaking of hype punk, we pivoted the topic of this conversation basically since we can't do the traditional way of 69, we're going to pivot it to 69 ways to get started in the crypto, NFT, and Web3 space. Not sure if we'll hit 69 points within the hour limit, but we are sure that I'm going to try. Isn't
Okay.
that right, Jean-Luc?
Yeah. So what we're just gonna do is just if you want to get started with crypto, if you want to get started with NFTs, if you just want to get started in a Web3 space, we're just gonna list a lot of things, and you can just cross them off. And if you think it's fun by the end of the episode, you can tell us how many of those things you've experienced yourself. And if you don't think it's fun, well, you can just listen in and see what's relevant for you. So let's start off with the first one. Read the Bitcoin white paper. How important do you think that one is?
It's, I would say, not as important as it used to be. I'd say it depends on who you are. Getting into the space, like if you truly want to understand what a peer-to-peer transaction is, then and you're a bit technical, then yes, I would recommend reading it. But for the average person, like the 80-90% of the general population, I don't think it's that relevant at this point anymore, especially
Because
with
it's
the
more
main.
financial, right?
Yeah.
That's mainly what you're saying. Okay, so
Have you
if
have you read it?
I actually started reading it again. I read it a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, one thing, it's really short. It's like a few
Yeah,
pages. So
yeah.
that was one good side. So it's a the very basic concept of a peer-to-peer transactions through cryptographic digital transactions.
It's also very technical, so that's also another thing. So it's about 8 pages. Actually, it's not that lengthy, but and then I think that helps when people are like, I have to read a white paper. You're expecting like a 30-page essay or something, but it's not. It's relatively short. But I think I wonder what if is there something similar to that document for NFTs or for
Um,
Web3?
n- n- no, similar to that document in that short description. I think the closest thing or the best thing you'd probably have for someone very new is go to YouTube um, and start there. I'd recommend looking up what's his name, Cold Fusion, the Google Alt-Rate Australian
Oh yeah,
YouTuber.
yeah. Code
Has
Fusion.
yeah, he has some really in-depth explainer videos, usually around 15 to 20 minutes about very different topics. So he's usually one of my go-to sources. And there's a few other channels like explainer channels, but if I had to recommend a starting point, it's Cold Fusion, Cold Fusion's YouTube channel.
Okay. then I'm a little bit, yeah, I would say the next step would get in on a faucet. How do you feel
Uh,
about it?
well, I personally not to. I've actually never done it. I don't really resonate with the concept, but for the people listening in, could you briefly explain what a faucet is and how
A
that works?
faucet, a faucet is basically a drip of good fate, of good fortune, in the sense that there are websites that are paying out like really small increments of different cryptos, but also Bitcoin. And they just pay out certain parts of crypto. And if you're committed enough, you can get enough out of it that if you do it for 3 months, you have
Yes.
something to start with. And basically, the only thing you have to do is spend 15 minutes of your day to collect three faucets a day for 3 months. And you don't have to, because one of the things, the reason why I mentioned faucet is a lot of people are scared to buy. And we've discussed this before, especially for some countries. I mean, in the Netherlands, I was in the Netherlands, and one of the students where I spoke at, she mentioned like this app, and I was like, okay. And then the next day, I saw the app on television promoting it. So like in Western countries, it's kind of easy because there are all these apps who can bring your money directly from your bank account or directly from wherever you want straight into to crypto. While it's a little more difficult in developing countries, you either have like a go-to person or you have to really know all the loopholes to get to the situation where you
Yeah,
can put
there's
crypto.
no straightforward
There's no
point of
straightforward
access in that infrastructure.
to buy your first fraction of
Yeah.
Bitcoin, for instance. So a faucet would be like the easiest way to not have to invest any money. You just invest your time. And I think this is definitely underrated for younger people who still have a lot of time on their hands. I mean, if you're in high school, I mean, how in high school it's the easiest to just before you go to school you claim your faucet. When you come back from school you claim your faucet, and before you go to sleep you claim your faucet. You claim your faucets three times a day, and I mean that's free. It's literally free. And I thought it was a joke in 2017, 18. And then when the market jumped and all these faucets, of course, a lot of faucets, they
Died.
stop paying out, they die off because when it becomes too expensive, they stop. But it's a great way to get your first $5 or your first $10 worth of crypto just by getting something for free. So that's the concept of a faucet. And for those that want to get into it easily and to be able to say like, oh, I own a fraction of a Bitcoin, I own a fraction of an Ethereum. I mean, faucet's the easiest way.
Yeah, it's to get actually experiencing that transaction. I would say it's the added value because the amount you'd get is very insignificant
But it's really
un-
important that you learn
unless
it.
you grind over time. But yes, I do agree on that part,
I, I,
that learning
I
part.
can actually honestly say that from I think 6 months of faucets in 2018, I ended up with over $100 in the end.
Oh wow. Is that when was that $100 at the end of the 6 month value at the
No,
hundred
no,
dollars
no. At the
of
end
your
of the 6 months, it was like $5 or $10.
but thanks to
But
the
like
bull market
in,
of
in
2021.
3 years later, or
Okay.
4 years later, it was a
Yeah.
hundred dollars. So and why faucets are also interesting because you also learn about different cryptos sometimes, not always, and you also learn the difference between actual money and click money.
Could you elaborate on click money? And do you have
So
a like starting point for people
so
on getting
so
into a
also
faucet?
less familiar for us, but more familiar for other countries is that um, there are these some are click farms. Others are research sites. And there are these research sites where you can actually earn up to $5 for doing a farm or research or marketing research or things like that. And it's very expensive for a Western country. It's really expensive to convince somebody to do a marketing research to be part of their market research because they can't find anybody who's willing to spend 30 minutes or 20 minutes or even 10 minutes filling in a form. And they need the data as well to collect kind of how human psychology works. So you can actually fill in those forms where somebody in real life would get paid $15 for it. They can pay you $1.50 online, and they're satisfied, and you're satisfied.
So it's
And
mainly for acquiring research data.
yeah, it's research data. And based on how long the farm is, that decides on how much they will pay you out. But just to give you an idea that those things are also there, and then you can see like how much a faucet gives you compared to these kind of jobs. And there's also something else. Most of these faucets also have a gambling part,
Ooh.
and I'm talking about faucets, people. I'm not talking about the gambling part. Don't think like, oh, I got 0.0001 Bitcoin. Let's see if I can make it 0.0002 Bitcoin by doing a high or low gamble. No, just go in for the faucet, collect your faucets when it's big enough to transfer it, and please keep in mind that there is, of course, a transaction fee, and that's where it's good to learn with faucets as well, because you immediately learn about transaction fees and how much something's worth. So that's why I think a faucet is a good start as well. Then I would like,
The
yeah,
only thing I want to add to Faucet is, especially if you're going to look into Ethereum or Ethereum-like networks, especially the test nets.
mm,
If you're more on the developer side, they have faucets that distribute like starting funds to experiment on the test net. So that's also one way to look at it more from a
from
educational development
yeah,
side.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Then I want to go to the next one. Um, get in on an airdrop.
So for airdrops, yeah, uh, airdrops is very broad in this context, but basically, quick definition: airdrop is basically if you've participated in something, or you own a particular coin or something, or you registered for something. Uh, Basically, the company or the network will reward these individuals with a certain asset or a token or whatever by magically appearing in your wallet. Basically, they send it to your wallet as a reward. It's not really magically, but for being part of something, you get something else in return, and that's basically the airdrop.
Yeah. How do you feel about? Do you think that's better than a faucet?
I'd say it's more. It feels more. I'm not sure tangible is the right word, but I think the feeling is more visceral if you weigh an airdrop versus a faucet because people like yeah it weighs more, especially in the NFT space. I think that has kind of a bit diluted it, but I would rank an airdrop a tad above faucet for me. But airdrops are also harder to get into. It's more limited, I think, and very more niche.
Definitely.
And most of the time, you need to own a different asset already to receive the benefits of the airdrop.
Yeah, I mean that would be more difficult, of course, but then let's go a little bit more from the technical. Yeah, not necessarily technical, but from the setup side. Get a separate email address.
I can see this being very useful from a security perspective. But on the other hand, you don't even need a crypto email address if you really want to go, hardcore crypto. But for exchange communication, etc., where you do require an email, then just get a separate email address. Have you done that?
I actually have, but I don't. I use different mails for different kind of things. So it's really hard to say that I have an email address completely separate for Web3. Like some things, if it's something centralized, I even use my. I in some cases I use one of my three primary emails because it's just easier. And if it's something that's completely decentralized, especially it's mainly for the security things that I don't trust. If it's something that I don't trust, I definitely use my anonymous mails.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily have anonymous emails, but what I do when it's a very shady site, there's this app or platform where you can generate temporary email addresses, and
Oh
that's what I
wow, no, no,
usually
no, no,
do.
no, no. I
To
if I go into a shady website, it's not that shady that I won't ever use that same email address again.
Yeah,
So
so we just generate a temporary email to see what you actually get, and then
wow.
after a few hours or I think a few minutes, that email address gets discarded or recycled. So I actually have an app for on my phone ready to go for those situations.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
But yeah, if from a security perspective, depending on how hardcore you are, definitely get a separate email address for those types of things. But for general uses, usually you don't have to go that route yet. But it's something to consider once you go in deeper. Yeah.
Um, get an account on an exchange. Getting an account on an exchange.
This this is a process, and it's very tricky. And maybe you should, if we're talking about exchanges, then I would generally refer to the bigger, more well-known exchanges,
So
such
give
as
us the top.
Binance, FTX.
Okay. So give
Uh,
us the top five exchanges.
I would consider Binance top five, FTX in the top five, Kraken, not so much in volume, but based on reputation and how long they've existed. I would put Kraken there. KuCoin is if you want to go into the more not so well-known alternative coins. KuCoin is a fairly decent one, and a fifth one. Let's see, did I miss Coinbase is the
I was gonna wonder if you're gonna put the Coinbase in. Okay. Okay.
is the most user-friendly one, I'd
Yeah.
say. But
So
yeah,
KuCoin over Bittrex.
oh, I have discarded Bittrex completely just
Okay.
because of the terrible, in my experience, customer service so far, and the listing and delisting of coins happening abruptly, and then KYC over KYC every time, and uh, yeah,
Okay.
not much of a nice experience. Same with Poloniex. There's in the early days, Poloniex was very popular, but if you read into the history of Ethereum and Bitcoin, and you'll see some shady stuff that happened with Poloniex.
So what about have you tried Gate.io?
Heard of it, haven't tried it. So these are the centralized exchanges, right? Of course, you also have decentralized exchanges, but for the beginner
Yeah.
getting
Okay.
into it,
I think we'll
yeah,
keep that
stick to
one
the
for another.
centralized exchanges.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One of these top five,
Yeah.
and you should be reasonably okay. And
Okay.
setting up account is basically email and uh, email, password, and some verification. Not all of them require full verification. You can set up an account, but you'll be very restricted if you don't go through the KYC and verify through identification with your passport or ID. Um, yeah, on one
Okay,
side, we're kind of,
that brings up to the next point. Get your account verified on the exchange.
I avoid doing that as much as possible if it's not necessary.
Okay. But in some cases you can trade. In some cases you can't even trade if you don't.
Yeah. So, and each exchange has its use cases, but in general, if you have a, it's if your purpose is just to, withdraw or deposit like uh, regularly, then yes, you'll have to go through the verification and then generally use either FTX, Binance, or Coinbase. Those are the popular ones.
Okay. Then of course the last one from this block, buy a fraction of Bitcoin.
Yes, yes. All I can say to this one is yes. Once you've done that, transfer it from one wallet to another, even if the fees are ridiculous. Just do it with what you can afford, of course. I think that the first time me and a friend actually pulled like was it $50, 50 or $100 to through this very shady website get Bitcoin, because a few years back these big exchanges weren't even as accessible as they are now, so it was even harder. But that first transaction opened the floodgates basically of okay, the convenience, the experience, etc. So doing that, I would say yes, and do it with Bitcoin, not another thing. You could do
Mint
it
your
with
first
Ethereum, but
crypto.
Ethereum has ridiculous fees, so I would still do Bitcoin over Ethereum, but Bitcoin or Ethereum.
So your first crypto, for me personally, my first crypto purchase was Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my first crypto transaction was Ethereum though,
yeah, I
but
think mine was as
the
well.
first actual purchase was, yeah, I think
Yeah,
it was Bitcoin. Because you
it
could only
was.
purchase Bitcoin and then exchange that Bitcoin for other stuff.
Yeah,
You couldn't directly purchase it.
yeah. I bought for 7,000 US. I didn't buy. I bought when I bought a fraction. I bought at the price of 7,000 US.
I was about to say, did you buy
Yeah.
it?
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't buy a full Bitcoin. I didn't have that money.
So yeah, so summing it up, I would sum this up is if you're just getting started, focus on Bitcoin, get that exchange or get it from someone else, but or through a faucet or something. But experiencing that first transaction is key, I think, for most beginners to unlock that next phase.
Nice. So let's get on to the next block. Read about Ethereum.
Reading about, so Ethereum has a very, I would say, convoluted history, but now my go-to resource, if you're really interested in the history of Ethereum, I would recommend the Cryptopians, authored by Laura Shin. It actually got released, I think, a few months ago. I got a copy, um, and she's an investigative reporter, and she actually went back and made it into a book form on what happened from the founding of Ethereum and the big hack that happened in 2016, was it? How that happened and how Ethereum Classic got um, forked, etc. So it's a very interesting read on the development of Ethereum, but not just Ethereum, just how organizations work in general.
Okay,
And
so clarify for us because you're saying correctly. There's Ethereum Classic and there's Ethereum, and Ethereum basically is the forked version of Ethereum Classic, meaning that Vitalik is not the founder of the original Ethereum, the Ethereum Classic, but founder of the current form of Ethereum, which everybody works with.
No.
Okay, explain to us what's actually going on.
So you basically had Ethereum, just Ethereum, and it has been co-founded by Vitalik, a few others, but Vitalik was first doing uh, was writing Bitcoin magazine, was very interested in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's had its limitation, and he wanted to do more, right? That programmatic layer on top of this cryptographic technology, on top of the blockchain tech, and that's when the Ethereum white paper was written by him, and he sent this to different experts in the spaces, and then they came together from developers to investors, and I think a group of 5 or 6 people kind of formed the founding Ethereum first version, and you had two core developer teams. I think one was based in the Netherlands or Germany, I think, uh, but that developed and they developed that. It started in 2015, I think. Developed it over that period, but in 2016, I might be a year off. You had already lots of developers developing different types of coins, tokens on top of Ethereum, and the DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations that are very popular now. That was kind of one of the experiments with it, and they launched a DAO. That's why it's called a DAO hack. And there was something wrong with the contract, and a hacker kind of um, exploited that. And this was separate from the core Ethereum team. But to maintain the functionality of the Ethereum chain, Vitalik and the main Ethereum team intervened in that to salvage before the whole chain was destroyed as an after effect of the DAO hack. And they made the hard decision to fork it and kind of refund people who were um, how do you call this, exploited by the hack. But then you had the maximalists on having the view of you can't do that, otherwise you're going to be doing the same thing. And that's why where the classic came. The old chain stayed and the hack fund stayed in that way, but the majority moved over to the forked chain. So actually, Ethereum, as we know it now, is not in its original form. It is the forked version. That part you did have correct. Um,
Yeah,
but
but I think it's very interesting to see how Ethereum has grown and that Ethereum Classic has not grown along with it because it doesn't hold the same structure, if I may say that.
yeah, I won't say same structure. There's been no development basically
Yeah.
because all the core developers moved with Vitalik Ethereum to patch these exploits, hacks, etc. to make it more secure. So all the activity moved to the Ethereum chain, and Classic just stayed as a speculative element for exchanges, and that's how it's being kept alive mostly by that speculative element, but not that there's much development or not at all happening from what I've seen lately.
Okay.
But if you read the Cryptopians, it's a very thick book, but very interesting to see the founding history and
Okay.
just how much
So, but
backstabbing happened.
but that's always the case. I mean, that's also with traditional companies and organizations. So, um, if you read about Ethereum, should you also read about Ethereum-based altcoins or tokens?
I would stick to Ethereum, get an understanding of that, and understand what the tokens can do, because every other coin out there is the next Ethereum killer or the next solution to this. But Ethereum itself as a platform blockchain has limitations. So having a understanding of that base layer is fundamental if you're gonna look into other, especially Ethereum based tokens. I would recommend sticking to Ethereum and understanding the smart contracts part first before randomly going to another coin, unless it's something you're really passionate about, maybe about education, maybe about file storage, etc., and then reverse learn about Ethereum. But the foundation is still Ethereum, and I think that's very important to know first.
Nice.
And then you'll be able
Now,
to more easily filter, like, okay, is this a sham, is this a scam, is this a loot and scoot, or whatever it is, or is this actually somewhat seems far-fetched but it is possible, and then you can start peeling off some layers.
okay, so you have a fraction of Bitcoin, you get a fraction of Ethereum, and you get to do one altcoin.
uh can you repeat it? So are you asking
Yeah.
me to?
So basically, yeah, you're new. You're diving into crypto. You bought a fraction of Bitcoin. You bought a fraction of Ethereum. You get to buy one altcoin. And we're
What?
not talking about putting hundreds or thousands of dollars in. You could put like $10 in. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
If you purely want to experiment,
Or
uh
you do it in something you believe in, like you just said. Like, I believe in cloud storage, so I'm gonna connect with that. I believe in NFTs, so I'm gonna connect with, for instance, Flow. Or I believe in getting earning from writing, so I'm gonna invest in Hive. I believe in gaming, so I'm gonna invest in Axie Infinity. It really depends, basically, on what you believe in, and you should be free to uh, invest a little or just dab a little into one specific altcoin, right?
yeah, that's totally up to you. For pure experimentation, uh but not as a financial decision. If I had to add another one, actually, probably be Doge, just for the lols.
Yeah, so that's actually, put that one off my list now. Buy a bit of Doge. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the reason I kind of put it in there. Okay, so now you've built up a small portfolio. I mean, you could put in like $50, $100, and you have a fraction of Bitcoin, a fraction of Ethereum, and you have some Doge. And then the next question comes in: um, should you go on crypto Twitter?
Oh, yeah. So one thing you'll often hear referred to is the CT, abbreviation for crypto Twitter. And Twitter is basically the people's platform about niche projects like this. And obviously there's scams happening all over the place, but no other platform has, in my experience at least, has the energy that Twitter has, specifically crypto Twitter, on developments happening, people responding. If you have an idea or you want to be part of a project or a company, it's easiest to engage in crypto Twitter and connect with people. You can even apply for jobs if you're a developer or something. Twitter would be the recommended place to go over LinkedIn, over, I think
Reddit?
Reddit could still work, but I would still place Twitter over Reddit just because of the velocity of information.
Pure volume as well, I
Yeah,
believe.
volume and velocity of
But
information
I
happening
think
on Twitter.
if you want to deep dive with more background info, Reddit could be useful as well.
Yeah, but usually when you're on Twitter, either they'll write up Twitter threads, like that's a whole thread with maybe 20 tweets talking about the topic, or they're either linked to a larger resource like that's on Reddit or on Substack or something similar. But I would recommend the go-to place is definitely Twitter to
Okay.
get stay into the loop. Do you have
Next, no,
other
actually, next step, engage with the community of your altcoin on that platform on Twitter.
um I think, well, what are your thoughts on this? How would you limit engagement? Yeah, maybe start
What?
with that.
What do you mean? Why would you want to limit engagement?
Nene, how would you define engagement?
Get into the
You
conversation.
engaging or seeing how
Talk
other people engage?
Well, see, here's the thing about it. You don't start off by tweeting and being the know-it-all who knows everything about that platform. I mean, it starts off with lurking, like you said. It starts off with listening in on the conversation and just understanding. Then you go to kind of hoarding information and trying to uh, collect. Then you become a collector. So you're an inactive, then you become a collector, you collect information, and then you get into the phase where you start maybe liking the tweets that you connect with the most and following the people within the space that you feel have the most you're the most behind when it come to their thoughts, and then start commenting on their tweets when you have something that you feel like you want to say. I think that's where you start, and only after all those steps that I explained would be that you would starting posting tweets of your own.
Okay, to start off, what would be your recommendation or way to go for a beginner for finding people to follow?
Oh, that's easy. Just follow the hashtags.
So, do you have like a top three hashtag for a starting person?
No, because the hashtags are decided by them, right? So of course you could go hashtag Bitcoin, hashtag Ethereum, and hashtag the altcoin the alternative coin that you picked out. So that would be the easiest way to start. And then you see the conversations and you follow the people that you feel are most interesting to follow. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, one recommendation I do want to add for Twitter is at least in the settings, um, to put it on latest tweets instead of having the algorithm curate for you, because that's gonna give you like the Facebook biased view. So I'm not sure if it's by default now, but with the recent Twitter updates, I think you have to switch it every now and then
Yeah, that's a good tip.
because you want to stay with recent information. Like I mentioned before, velocity and volume do
Okay.
matter.
So we've really touched the basics on getting started. Now some more getting proof of work kind of stuff. Buy your first product or service with crypto. What's the
Um,
first thing you purchased with crypto? I'm wondering. I'm
the
really
the actual first purchase, like a consumer good.
or a service. I My first purchase with crypto was a service. It wasn't a physical good.
Mine was actually a physical good, and it was actually two books on Amazon. Was Gary Vaynerchuk's "Crush It" or "Crushing It," the second one, and "The Art of War."
Okay, interesting. And you could with what did you pay? Ethereum,
Actually, Bitcoin,
Bitcoin. Okay,
but it was through a platform. I forgot the name of it. They don't exist anymore, but it was a few years ago.
okay,
But what they did is they kind of bridged the connection to Amazon, whereas you could make a wish list on Amazon and then connect it to that platform, and the Bitcoin that you have on that platform would be used to um, do the actual purchase on Amazon?
My first purchase with crypto was either uh, a signature, a gift signature for my blogs, or a flock intro and outro for my vlogs. I honestly don't know which one I purchased earlier.
And what was this with Bitcoin? What
With
with
Hive,
Hive? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
But yeah, when you mentioned proof of work earlier, I was thinking of the other proof of work, but you mean an actual transactional example of, you
Yeah,
can actually use it in
that
the
you
real
can
world.
actually use this, because one of
Yeah,
the concerns that people have with crypto is like, yeah, but it's money in the air. You can't do anything with it.
yeah,
Then I have another one. Give some crypto away.
yeah. That is one way to go. You could either try and make your own crypto, but giving some
No, no, no.
crypto.
That's not something for a crypto noob to do that. If all crypto noobs did that, then we would have a bigger problem. Um,
Giving some crypto away is basically, of course, it's gonna be an insignificant amount for giveaways, but it's basically gonna familiar side.
Insignificant for you, but it might be significant for somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, no, but
That's what most that's what
I
most giveaways are. It's insignificant amounts for the person giving it away, and the person receiving it. It's very for them. It's very significant.
yeah, and I'm referring to the monetary value, but
Yeah.
I would say ignore the monetary value. It's more about that experiencing, like how do you actually do a transaction, and for the other people, the new people, if you're a newbie, introducing newer people is that experience of, oh, this is what a sending a transaction feels like. This is a process of going through that wallet, etc. And each wallet has its different like pros and cons, or usability, and not all of them are very user friendly. And are you gonna use a exchange wallet like Coinbase, or are you gonna use a self-custody wallet like MetaMask, or a hardware wallet like Ledger? These are all things you need to consider in that experience and try it on each different platform.
I want to jump onto that one and say compare the transaction with an international cash or an international bank transaction.
So what is the, because I haven't done any actual like international wire transfers like in forever. I don't think I ever done one.
You need like a Swift code or a IBAN code, and then
Yeah. I think I've done it once or twice, but I don't remember what it was like or what the fees were. Because I've heard horror stories like, oh, these are the fees, but then suddenly it arrives at the other person, and then there's another fee of their local bank because they had to go to an intermediary bank, and that had their own fee again. So it stacks a lot, or
yeah, so you have
can be unpredictable if
the
you're coming from.
regulatory fee, which is I think somewhere between $15 and $20. But then you can also have like local fees, which often are in percentages. So that's where it gets ugly.
Yeah, so the moment, like when you're sending larger amounts, percentages start getting ugly real fast.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you're sending small amounts, then the fixed fees are killing you. So either
So
way
you
you
do
look
want
at
to
it.
know the difference between those. For me, it's really the speed. I mean, I can take a coin, send it to an exchange it for a stable coin, exchange it to another coin, send it to another exchange it to a change it to a stable coin, exchange it to another coin, send it to another exchange, and make a payment there within 30 minutes.
Or you
There
just
was
send
a,
the
there
asset
was a
directly.
lot of steps, but I did that in 30 minutes, what I just explained. Now, it would have been a lot easier if I could just send it from the first to the seventh step, but then it would cost me $20 more.
Well, that depends on which coin it is. If you're talking about the network, the Ethereum network, then yes, you're
Yeah,
gonna deal with those
so
types of
so
amounts. But if you're talking Bitcoin or some
mm,
other coin, the direct send is the way to go.
yeah. Unfortunately, on the exchange where I do the payments, I cannot exchange to a stablecoin. Don't ask me why. Um, but imagine that with with a regular bank transfer, then it would be uh, one one payment, but it wouldn't be on my bank account in um, in 30 minutes. Okay, staking a coin for 3 months.
So yeah, I think that's the next thing you could look at is proof of work and proof of stake, and what staking is, and getting your feet wet on that. And in this context, staking basically promises, oh, lock your coins for a period of time, in this case 3 months, and get rewarded. So you could compare it to traditional world, like if you would put money into your savings account from your bank, that you get um, a return rate, etc. And it's pretty similar to staking if you're looking at the monetary side, but yeah, you're locking the coins up for a certain period and not using it.
Okay, I think it's time for some over and unders to close it up.
Yeah, sure. Let's do some two each, rapid fire over unders. We could keep it in this team, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be perfectly fine. Do you want to go
Uh,
first, or should I go first?
no, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to go first because it happens too often that I steal yours, right?
No, it's okay. So, MetaMask, overrated or underrated?
See, I was gonna say MetaMask.
Ah,
Uh, MetaMask is properly rated right now, in my opinion. There are other wallets popping up to make it more user friendly. Frame is another one. Coinbase came with their own self custody wallet as well. But MetaMask itself is properly rated because it is the most common, well known, and battle tested one. It still has its like it's not as user friendly for beginners, but once you're acquainted with the space, it is the go-to place for doing stuff. So I'd say properly rated. Um, okay, next one then for me, PFPs in June 2022.
oh yeah, we did this before. I still don't think it's. Uh, I'm pretty sure it's currently overrated, but it will be underrated in a year time.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we're just not. It's very underdeveloped at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the buy on a low, sell on a high strategy.
People say it, 95% of people don't do it. I would say overrated. What is underrated to counter this point is dollar cost averaging. That is severely underrated. People try to time the market buying low and selling high, but I would recommend just dollar cost average. That means buy in a regular frequency a set amount and add it to your portfolio. So if it's every month, every 2 months, see what's works for you and make a set amount like $10, $50, what you can afford, obviously, but keep consistently doing that over time. So buy low, sell high strategy overrated, But to counter that, dollar cost averaging is the way to go, for me at least. All right. Then I'll end it with blockchain gaming.
Mm, feel the same way with the PFPs. I think at this rate, there are too many things coming out, and there are not enough players. So there's kind of a slow,
Oversupply.
yeah. There's a very big oversupply at the moment. I think that's a big issue because the rate of new people is it's like the problem they didn't what people underestimated is they were thinking of a linear growth and a continuous growth and the we're not there yet as an industry. So a lot of projects, FT projects, but also games are suffering from not getting enough new players in, and that kind of drains on the already existing players because it's them who have to constantly invest in keeping it going, and that yeah, it just doesn't work. It devalues kind of everything. But in the long run, it's heavily underrated because the ones that will survive, the games that are actually really good, when the next jump of new gamers comes in and starts understanding these games, it's gonna explode.
I
But that
don't want to
yeah
divert too much, but I do want to know your thoughts on the backlash that traditional gamers are giving to this space. Do you have any thoughts
yeah
on that?
no, I don't have any comments on that for now.
Because that is something that's really prevalent in the space. Like traditional gamers hate or like absolutely don't like how the space is going.
Yeah, it's a lose lose. It's you're too much, and there's not really a lot you can do at the moment because people are impatient. People are really impatient, and you just have to remember when you're doing a blockchain game, you should treat it as a regular game. You shouldn't play the game if you think the game is awful, but you think you can make money. That's not how you
Exactly.
play the game. You play the game because you actually like the game.
It should be a game first,
It
and
should be
then
the game.
the
And
blockchain element can add something to it.
yeah, and when you've spent hundreds or even thousands of dollars on games, playing games in your lifetime, you shouldn't complain about not making that much money from crypto gaming.
Yeah, I pay basically a $13 per month subscription for one of the games I play.
That's a great way of looking at it. Hey, from that go, I thought this was a really fun episode, and I do want to give it a continuation in a different topic.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you've been listening to this, count how many points we've mentioned. We said we're going to do 69, but obviously we were never gonna reach that
Oh,
within.
maybe they managed to count 70. You don't know.
Yeah, put that, share that with us somewhere on Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is, and add some stuff that you think beginners can also do if we haven't mentioned it yet. We have a just before we close up, I see a comment coming in from, is that LinkedIn? Yes, LinkedIn. um, about doing this in Dutch. Yeah, we deliberately not doing this in Dutch. We can have a separate Dutch conversation, but not in the setting of social convos. That's basically the format of the show. That's why we're doing it in English. But yeah, if you wanna just have a fun offline conversation, just reach out to us and we can see what we can do. Always happy to share about these topics. Closing thoughts, and look, and then you can wrap us off.
So this was just getting as much details in as possible in a fun format. I hope you guys enjoy it. As always, this audio version or the audio version of this episode will be available in the weekend, and we
Might
will
not be this weekend, but I'll do my best.
Or also are available on confoes.com/social confoes. We will be back here next week, same place, same time, maybe with my face or maybe with my hive punk again. Have a
Yeah.
great night.
Hopefully your face.
Thanks,
All right. Good
Diego.
night.
Thanks for people for joining in. This was it. See you. Bye bye.